The text message arrived at 3:47 p.m. on a Tuesday, right as I was reviewing quarterly projections for our health tech startup. Keena's words glowed on my phone screen like a neon sign advertising the end of my marriage. "We need to talk tonight, about us, about excitement." I'm Colby Varron, 41 years old, Chief Financial Officer at MedFlow Solutions, and according to my wife of 12 years, about as thrilling as watching paint dry on a rainy Sunday. The irony wasn't lost on me. I managed millions in venture capital, negotiated deals that could make or break companies, but apparently couldn't generate enough spark to keep my own wife interested. That evening, Kana sat across from me at our granite kitchen counter, her manicured fingers drumming against her wine glass. She'd changed from her real estate power suit into something more casual, designer jeans and a silk blouse that probably cost more than most people's car payments. Everything about Kina screamed expensive, from her highlighted hair to her perfectly applied makeup that somehow never seemed to smudge, even after a 12-hour day showing luxury properties to Dallas's elite. "Colby, I've been thinking," she began, swirling her Pinot Grigio with practiced elegance. "We've grown apart. You're always buried in spreadsheets, and I'm showing houses to clients who actually appreciate the finer things in life." I set down my tablet and gave her my full attention. "Go on." "I want an open relationship." The words hung in the air between us like smoke from a house fire. "We can stay married, keep our life together, but we should be free to explore other connections, other people who might understand us better." My first instinct was to laugh, not because it was funny, but because it was so perfectly Kina, dramatic, self-serving, and delivered with the confidence of someone who'd never considered the possibility of consequences. Instead, I took a sip of my bourbon and nodded thoughtfully. "Interesting proposition," I said, keeping my voice level. "Tell me more about how you see this working." Her eyes lit up with the enthusiasm she usually reserved for closing a $1 million property deal. "Well, we'd both be free to date other people. No sneaking around, no lies, complete honesty and transparency." "And you've thought this through? All the implications?" "Of course." She leaned forward, her confidence radiating like heat from a furnace. "We're adults, Colby. We can handle this maturely." I reached for my phone and opened a new document. "Then let's make it official. If we're doing this, I want everything documented. Rules, boundaries, expectations, the whole framework." Kina blinked, clearly not expecting my immediate agreement. "You want to write it down?" "I'm a CFO, sweetheart. I don't make major decisions without proper documentation." I started typing. "Rule number 1, complete transparency. We share our dating app profiles, notify each other of dates, and maintain open communication about all romantic encounters." "That seems reasonable," she said, though I caught a flicker of uncertainty in her voice. "Rule number 2, we sync our calendars so there are no scheduling conflicts or misunderstandings about when either of us is unavailable." "Okay." Rule number 3, we maintain separate dating app accounts but agree to regular check-ins about our experiences, match counts, and overall satisfaction with the arrangement. Kina shifted in her seat. "Match counts? That seems a bit clinical." "You wanted transparency," I reminded her, still typing. "Rule number 4, either party can request a review of the arrangement after 30 days, but any changes must be mutually agreed upon in writing." "Colby, this feels more like a business contract than a marriage agreement." I looked up from my phone, meeting her gaze directly. "Isn't that exactly what this is? You're proposing we restructure our relationship. I'm just ensuring we both understand the terms." She hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "Fine. Send me the document when you're finished." I completed the framework, adding clauses about financial responsibilities, household duties, and social media guidelines. 20 minutes later, I sent her a comprehensive 5-page agreement that covered everything from date notification protocols to conflict resolution procedures. Her phone chimed, and she read through the document with growing amazement. "This is incredibly thorough. I don't do anything halfway, I replied. If you're serious about this, sign it. If not, we can pretend this conversation never happened. Keena signed electronically and sent it back within 5 minutes. I immediately forwarded copies to my personal email, cloud storage, and my attorney's secure server. Documentation complete. So when do we start? She asked, already reaching for her phone. Whenever you're ready. I'll set up my profile tonight. The next morning, I arrived at Medflow's downtown Dallas offices with a new sense of purpose. Derek Martinez, our lead systems analyst and my closest work friend, noticed my improved mood immediately. You seem unusually cheerful for a Wednesday, he observed, settling into the chair across from my desk with his usual morning coffee. Win the lottery, or finally figure out how to make our expense reports less soul-crushing? Keena wants an open relationship, I said without preamble. Derek nearly choked on his coffee. I'm sorry, what? I explained the previous evening's conversation and showed him the signed agreement on my phone. Derek read through it with the same expression he wore when debugging particularly complex code. Intense concentration mixed with grudging admiration. This is either brilliant or completely insane, he said finally. Possibly both. She thinks I'm boring. Apparently 12 years of marriage to a CFO has left her craving excitement. And you're okay with this? I leaned back in my chair, considering the question. Derek, I've spent my entire adult life building something stable and secure. I've been the responsible one, the planner, the guy who reads the fine print and thinks 3 steps ahead. If Keena wants excitement, she's about to discover exactly how exciting careful preparation can be. That afternoon, I dedicated my lunch break to creating my dating profile. I used recent photos, not the 5-year-old pictures that most people posted, but current images that accurately represented who I was today. Professional headshots from the company website, casual photos from recent business trips, and a few candid shots that Derek had taken during our monthly poker games. For my bio, I kept it simple and honest. CFO at a successful health tech company. Travel frequently for business. Appreciate good conversation, fine dining, and people who understand that stability isn't the opposite of excitement. It's the foundation that makes real excitement possible. I verified my income through the app's premium features, added my travel history, and included my professional certifications. No exaggerations, no false advertising, just a straightforward presentation of who I was and what I offered. By Thursday evening, I had 47 match requests. By Friday morning, that number had climbed to 93. By Friday evening, I was looking at 162 potential matches, with new requests arriving every few minutes. I took screenshots of everything, the match counts, the message previews, the profile views. Documentation was key. Keena, meanwhile, was struggling. She'd spent Wednesday evening crafting what she called the perfect profile, complete with professional photos from her real estate marketing materials and a bio that emphasized her love of luxury travel, fine dining, and authentic connections with sophisticated individuals. Thursday brought her 3 matches. Friday added 2 more, but one unmatched after their first conversation. Saturday morning, she found me in our home office, organizing my growing collection of dating app screenshots into a detailed spreadsheet. How many matches do you have now? She asked, trying to keep her voice casual. 207, I replied without looking up from my laptop. Though I should mention, I've only responded to about 30% of them. I'm being selective. Her face went through several interesting color changes. 207? Give or take a few. The numbers keep climbing. I turned my laptop screen toward her, showing the spreadsheet with timestamps, match details, and response rates. How are things going on your end? Fine, she said quickly. Really good, actually. Quality over quantity, you know? Absolutely. Quality is crucial. I saved the spreadsheet and closed the laptop. Speaking of which, I have a coffee date this afternoon. Sarah Chen, She's a marketing director at a pharmaceutical company. We've been chatting about the intersection of healthcare technology and consumer behavior. Fascinating woman. Keena's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. That's nice. What about you? Any promising connections? A few, she said vaguely. I'm taking my time, being careful about who I meet. I nodded sympathetically. Smart approach. The market can be overwhelming. That afternoon's coffee date went exceptionally well. Sarah was intelligent, accomplished, and genuinely interested in discussing everything from market trends to travel experiences. We talked for 3 hours, and she suggested dinner the following weekend. When I returned home, Keena was waiting in the living room with her laptop open and a determined expression on her face. I've been thinking about our arrangement, she began. Oh? What about it? Maybe we rushed into this. Perhaps we should take a break from the apps, focus on reconnecting with each other first. I sat down across from her, maintaining the same calm demeanor I used during difficult board meetings. That's an interesting thought. What specifically triggered this change of heart? I just think we might benefit from slowing down, being more intentional about the process. The process of what? Dating other people? That was your idea, remember? Her cheeks flushed slightly. I know, but seeing how quickly things are moving, maybe we need to reconsider the timeline. I pulled out my phone and opened our signed agreement. According to Section 4, either party can request a review after 30 days. It's been 4 days. Colby, be reasonable. I am being reasonable. I'm following the exact terms you agreed to. I scrolled through the document. You wanted complete transparency, and I've been completely transparent. You wanted honesty, and I've been honest about my experiences. What exactly is the problem? She closed her laptop with more force than necessary. The problem is that this isn't working the way I expected. How did you expect it to work? The question hung in the air while she struggled to find an answer that wouldn't make her sound completely self-serving. Finally, she said, I thought we'd both explore new connections gradually, at a similar pace. Ah, I nodded as if this made perfect sense. So you expected us to have similar results, despite having different profiles, different approaches, and different value propositions in the dating market. Don't talk about marriage like it's a business transaction. You're the one who wanted to restructure our relationship, Keena. I'm just applying the same analytical skills that you've always claimed to admire in my professional life. She stood up abruptly. I need some air. I'm going to Ava's house. Ava Thornton was Keena's best friend and primary enabler, a divorced real estate agent who spent most of her free time complaining about men while simultaneously chasing after them with the desperation of a gambler doubling down on a losing hand. If Keena was seeking validation for her buyer's remorse, Ava's house was definitely the right destination. After she left, I opened my laptop and began preparing for the next phase of what was rapidly becoming the most interesting project of my career. Sunday morning brought a text from Keena. Stayed at Ava's last night. Need space to think. We'll be home this evening. I responded with a simple, understood, and went back to reviewing my weekend messages. The dating app notifications had become a steady stream. New matches, conversation starters, and follow-up messages from women who appreciated my straightforward communication style. One message particularly caught my attention. Jennifer Walsh, a corporate attorney, had written, Your profile is refreshingly honest. Most men my age either oversell themselves or seem to have given up entirely. Would you like to have dinner sometime this week? I was crafting a response when Derek called. How's the open relationship experiment going? He asked, without preamble. Keena's having second thoughts. She spent the night at Ava's, presumably strategizing her next move. And you're not concerned? Derek, I've been married to Keena for 12 years. I know exactly how she operates when things don't go according to her plans. She'll try to renegotiate the terms, probably with support from her friends, and she'll frame it as being concerned about our marriage rather than admitting she miscalculated. So what's your play? I saved my message draft and walked to the kitchen, phone pressed to my ear. I'm going to honor the agreement exactly as written. No modifications, no exceptions, no emotional manipulation. She wanted excitement and transparency. She's getting both. That's either going to fix your marriage or end it spectacularly. Honestly, I'm not sure there's a difference anymore. That evening, Keena returned home with Ava and another friend, Tara Mitchell, in tow. They arranged themselves in our living room like a tribunal, with Keena in the center chair and her supporters flanking her on either side. "Colby, we need to talk," Keena announced. "Of course. Though I should mention, if this is about modifying our agreement, I'll need any proposed changes in writing, just like the original document." Ava leaned forward, her expression radiating the kind of righteous indignation that only comes from someone who's never been held accountable for their own poor decisions. "Colby, what you're doing isn't fair to Keena." "I'm sorry, what exactly am I doing?" "You're gaming the system," Tara chimed in, "using your advantages to make Keena look bad." I set down my bourbon and gave them my full attention. "What advantages are those?" "You know exactly what we mean," Ava said. "Your income, your position, your professional photos. You're not being authentic." "Everything on my profile is completely accurate. Current photos, verified income, honest representation of my interests and lifestyle. How is that inauthentic?" Keena finally spoke up. "The point is, this arrangement is supposed to be about emotional connection, not just accumulating matches like their business metrics." "I see. So when you proposed an open relationship because I wasn't exciting enough, you were primarily concerned with emotional connection?" "Yes." "And when you specified complete transparency and honesty, you weren't interested in tracking our respective experiences?" "Well, yes, but—" "And when you signed an agreement that included regular check-ins about our dating experiences, you didn't expect that to involve any actual data?" Ava stood up, her face flushed with anger. "Stop twisting her words. This isn't a corporate negotiation." I remained seated, keeping my voice calm and level. "You're absolutely right. Corporate negotiations involve professionals who honor their commitments and understand the terms they're agreeing to." "You're being deliberately difficult," Tara accused. "I'm being consistent. Kenna wanted an open relationship. I agreed, with proper documentation to ensure we both understood the parameters. Now that the results aren't what she expected, she wants to change the rules. That's not how agreements work." Keena's voice rose slightly. "Colby, this is our marriage, not a business deal." "Then why did you approach it like a business proposal? You identified a problem, my alleged lack of excitement. You proposed a solution, dating other people. You agreed to specific terms and conditions. Now you're unhappy with the performance metrics." I stood up and walked to my laptop, opening the spreadsheet I'd been maintaining. "Since transparency was one of your key requirements, let me share some data. In the past 4 days, I've received 238 match requests. I've initiated conversations with 47 women, had meaningful exchanges with 23, and scheduled dates with 6. The room went silent. "Your turn, Keena. How many matches have you received?" She stared at the floor. "That's not the point." "It's exactly the point. You wanted to explore other options because you felt our relationship lacked excitement. The market has responded to our respective profiles, and the data suggests that perhaps the problem wasn't my lack of appeal." Ava jumped back into the conversation. "Online dating isn't a real representation of someone's worth." I agree completely, which makes Keena's original complaint even more interesting. If online dating doesn't reflect real worth, why did she assume the problem was my inability to generate excitement? Tara tried a different approach. "Colby, you're clearly intelligent and successful, but relationships aren't about winning or losing. You're absolutely right. They're about mutual respect, honest communication, and honoring your commitments. All things I've been doing throughout this process." Keena finally looked up, her eyes bright with unshed tears. "So you're just going to keep dating other women? Keep humiliating me?" I'm going to honor the agreement you proposed and signed. If you feel humiliated, that's a natural consequence of your decision-making, not my behavior. But what about our marriage? What about it? You told me I wasn't exciting enough. You proposed a solution. I implemented it exactly as specified. If you're unhappy with the results, perhaps you should reconsider your initial assessment. The three women exchanged glances, clearly realizing their intervention wasn't going according to plan. Kina, I continued, you have two options. You can honor our agreement and continue exploring other relationships, or you can acknowledge that you made a mistake and we can discuss ending this experiment. But you don't get to unilaterally change the terms because you're unhappy with the outcome. Ava stood up again. Come on, Kina, let's go. He's obviously not going to be reasonable about this. After they left, I returned to my laptop and responded to Jennifer's dinner invitation. We agreed to meet Tuesday evening at a restaurant downtown, somewhere with excellent wine and the kind of atmosphere that encouraged long conversations. Monday morning at the office, Derek found me reviewing quarterly projections with what he described as suspicious contentment. You're enjoying this, he observed. I'm finding it educational. Educational how? I leaned back in my chair, considering the question. 12 years ago, I married a woman who claimed to value stability, honesty, and partnership. Last week, she told me I was boring and proposed an open relationship. This week, she's angry because I'm better at open relationships than she anticipated. And that's educational? It's clarifying. I've spent 12 years trying to be the husband I thought she wanted. Reliable, successful, emotionally available. Turns out, what she actually wanted was someone who would fail at the things she couldn't succeed at herself. Derek shook his head. That's either profound or completely cynical. Why can't it be both? Tuesday evening's dinner with Jennifer exceeded my expectations. She was sharp, funny, and refreshingly direct about her own experiences with dating after divorce. We talked about everything from legal precedents to travel recommendations, and she laughed at my stories about corporate board meetings with the genuine appreciation of someone who understood professional challenges. I have to ask, she said over dessert, how does your wife feel about you dating? It was her idea, I replied honestly. She felt our marriage had become too predictable and suggested we both explore other connections. And she's comfortable with that? She's adjusting to the reality of what she proposed. Jennifer smiled. That's a diplomatic way of putting it. I'm a diplomat by necessity. CFOs who can't manage difficult conversations don't last long in their positions. Is that what this is? A difficult conversation? This is the pleasant part of my week. The difficult conversations happen at home. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. When I returned that evening, Kina was waiting in the kitchen with a bottle of wine and what appeared to be a prepared speech. How was your date? She asked. Excellent. Jennifer's a fascinating woman. We're planning to see each other again this weekend. Kina's smile faltered slightly. That's nice. I wanted to talk to you about something. I'm listening. I've been thinking about our arrangement, and I realize I may have been too hasty in wanting to change it. You're right. I proposed this, and I should honor the commitment. I poured myself a glass of wine and waited for the rest of her statement. So, I've decided to really embrace the experience. I'm going to be more proactive about dating, more open to different types of connections. That sounds like a healthy approach. I also thought it might be helpful if we shared more details about our experiences. Really commit to the transparency aspect. What kind of details? Well, like where you're going, what you talk about, how you feel about the people you're meeting. That way we can support each other through this process. I studied her face, recognizing the expression she wore when she was trying to close a difficult real estate deal. Kina, are you asking me to provide detailed reports about my dates So you can analyze them for weaknesses or competitive intelligence? Of course not. I just think communication is important. Communication is important. Surveillance isn't. I took a sip of wine. I'll continue to honor the transparency requirements we agreed to, notification of dates, general scheduling information, and honest answers to direct questions, but I won't provide detailed debriefings that serve no purpose except to feed your insecurity. Her carefully constructed composure cracked slightly. I'm not insecure. I'm trying to make this work. Then focus on your own dating experiences instead of monitoring mine. The next morning brought a text message that would change the entire dynamic of our situation. Colby, this is getting out of hand. People are starting to talk. We need to end this before it becomes a public embarrassment. K. I forwarded the message to my attorney with a simple note. Please review our documentation and prepare a formal separation agreement. I believe we're approaching the end of the experimental phase. The people are starting to talk turned out to be Keena's social circle, the collection of real estate agents, country club members, and suburban socialites who formed the core of her identity. Apparently, word had leaked about our open relationship experiment, and the gossip mill was working overtime. I discovered this Thursday morning when Derek showed me a screenshot from his wife's social media feed. Someone had posted a thinly veiled reference to certain couples who think they're too sophisticated for traditional marriage, complete with enough context clues to make the target obvious to anyone in Keena's orbit. This is getting messy, Derek observed. It's getting interesting, I corrected. Keena wanted excitement. Public scrutiny is definitely exciting. That evening, Keena ambushed me the moment I walked through the door. We have a problem, she announced. Margaret Hoffman knows about our arrangement. Margaret Hoffman was the unofficial queen of Dallas suburban gossip, a woman who treated other people's personal lives like her own private entertainment network. If Margaret knew about our situation, half the city would be discussing it by the weekend. How did she find out? Ava thinks someone saw your dating profile and recognized you from the company website. I set down my briefcase and poured myself a drink. So your concern is that people know we're doing exactly what we agreed to do? My concern is that this is affecting my professional reputation. My clients expect a certain level of discretion. Discretion about what? You're not having an affair, Keena. You're participating in an arrangement that you proposed, documented, and signed. That's not how people see it. How do people see it? She began pacing around our living room, her agitation increasing with each step. They think I'm either a terrible wife who drove her husband to seek other women, or a desperate woman who's so insecure she agreed to an open marriage to keep him. And which of those interpretations bothers you more? Both. Neither. The point is, this is damaging my reputation. I sat down on the couch and opened my laptop. Let me show you something. The screen displayed my dating app profile, complete with the current match count, 312. This is my profile as it exists right now. Current photos, accurate information, honest representation of who I am and what I'm looking for. If people recognize me from this, what exactly is the scandal? The scandal is that you're married and actively dating other women. With my wife's knowledge, consent, and encouragement, based on an agreement she initiated. Keena stopped pacing and stared at the laptop screen. 312? Give or take, the number keeps growing. That's impossible. It's documented. Screenshots, timestamps, conversation logs, all properly archived. She sank into the chair across from me, her face pale. How is this happening? Market dynamics. I'm offering something that's apparently in demand: stability, honesty, financial security, and emotional maturity. Turns out those qualities are more valuable than either of us realized. But what about me? What am I offering that's different? The question hung in the air like smoke from a fire that was just beginning to spread. I could have been gentle, diplomatic, supportive. Instead, I chose honesty. Keena, what are you offering? I'm successful, attractive, sophisticated. So are most of the women I'm matching with. What makes you unique in the dating market? She stared at me as if I'd asked her to solve advanced calculus. I have experience. I know what I want. What do you want? Excitement, adventure, someone who appreciates the finer things. And what are you offering in return? The silence stretched between us until she finally whispered, I don't understand the question. You're approaching dating like you approach real estate. You know what you want to buy, but you haven't considered what you're selling. Every woman on these apps wants excitement and adventure. Most of them also want financial security, emotional stability, and a partner who's already proven he can maintain long-term commitments. I offer all of that. What's your unique value proposition? Her phone buzzed with a text message. She glanced at it, and her face went even paler. What is it? Tara. She says Margaret Hoffman is telling people that I'm so inadequate as a wife that you had to seek satisfaction elsewhere. That's not accurate. I know it's not accurate, but that's what people are saying. I closed the laptop and gave her my full attention. Keena, do you want to end this experiment? Yes, no, I don't know. She rubbed her temples. I want to go back to before this started, but I also don't want to admit defeat. Those aren't your only options. What do you mean? You could lean into it, own the narrative. Instead of being embarrassed about our arrangement, you could present it as a sophisticated, modern approach to marriage. How? Margaret Hoffman thrives on scandal because most people try to hide from gossip. What if you didn't hide? What if you embraced the attention and positioned yourself as someone who's confident enough to try unconventional solutions? Keena looked intrigued, despite herself. You think that would work? I think it would be more effective than skulking around like you've done something wrong. But what if it backfires? What if it doesn't? You're already dealing with negative gossip. At least this way, you control the narrative. Friday morning, I arrived at the office to find Derek waiting with coffee and a grim expression. We have a situation, he said. What kind of situation? The kind where your personal life intersects with your professional life in potentially problematic ways. He handed me a printout of an email that had been sent to our company's general inbox. I thought you should know that your CFO is using his position and income to manipulate women on dating apps while his wife suffers at home. This kind of behavior reflects poorly on your company's values. Anonymous, I assume? Completely. But it gets worse. Derek showed me his phone, displaying a social media post that had been shared in several local business groups. Ladies, beware of married men who use their professional success to prey on unsuspecting women. Some people have no shame. Someone's escalating, I observed. Any idea who? I thought about the timing, the language, and the specific focus on my professional position. Probably Ava. She's the type who thinks anonymous complaints are a form of activism. What are you going to do? I'm going to talk to our legal team about defamation, and then I'm going to have a very direct conversation with my wife about controlling her friends. That evening, I found Keena in our bedroom, surrounded by printouts of social media posts and looking like she'd been crying. It's getting worse, she said without looking up. I know. Someone sent an anonymous complaint to my office. Her head snapped up. What kind of complaint? The kind that suggests I'm using my professional position to manipulate women, while you suffer as an innocent victim. I know you didn't, but someone in your circle did, and it needs to stop immediately. How am I supposed to control what other people post online? You start by making it clear that anyone who interferes with my professional reputation will face legal consequences. Then you decide whether you want to end this experiment or commit to it fully. What do you mean, commit to it fully? I sat down on the edge of the bed, choosing my words carefully. Kenna, we're at a crossroads. We can end this arrangement, file for separation, and deal with the gossip as a private matter between two people who couldn't make their marriage work, or we can lean into the situation and use it to our advantage. How would that work? You stop being defensive about our arrangement and start being proud of it. You position yourself as someone who's confident enough to try innovative solutions to relationship challenges. You turn the gossip into social proof that you're interesting enough to generate conversation. She considered this for a long moment. And if I choose option 1, if we end the experiment? Then we file for separation tomorrow, divide our assets according to Texas law, and you deal with the social consequences of a failed marriage instead of a successful experiment. Those are my only choices? Those are the logical outcomes of the situation you created. Saturday morning brought a text from Jennifer. Looking forward to dinner tonight. Fair warning, I've been thinking about our conversation regarding professional challenges, and I have some follow-up questions. I was responding when Keena appeared in the kitchen, dressed in what I recognized as her serious business outfit, a tailored suit that she usually reserved for high-stakes negotiations. "I've made a decision," she announced. "I'm listening. I'm going to embrace this situation. You're right. Hiding makes me look weak and guilty. If people are going to talk anyway, I might as well give them something interesting to discuss. What's your plan?" "I'm having lunch with Margaret Hoffman today. I'm going to tell her exactly what we're doing and why it's working for us. And if she uses that information against you, then I'll use her reputation against her. Margaret's been married 4 times. She's not exactly an authority on relationship success." I smiled, recognizing the competitive instinct that had made Keena successful in real estate. That's a much better strategy. I also want to coordinate our stories. If we're going to present this as a successful experiment, we need to be consistent about the details. What kind of details? How many people we're dating, what we're learning about ourselves, how it's actually strengthened our marriage. I paused in my coffee preparation. Has it strengthened our marriage? It's certainly clarified a few things. Such as? Such as the fact that you're apparently much more attractive to other women than I gave you credit for. And how does that make you feel? She was quiet for a moment, then said, "Honestly, a little proud and a lot stupid." "Stupid how?" "Stupid for not appreciating what I had. Stupid for thinking the problem was your lack of excitement instead of my lack of perspective." It was the closest thing to an apology I'd heard from her since this entire situation began. "Keena, can I ask you something?" "Sure." "When you proposed this arrangement, what did you expect to happen?" "I thought we'd both go on a few dates, remember what it was like to feel desired by other people, and come back to each other with renewed appreciation." "And you thought we'd have similar experiences? Similar numbers of matches and dates?" She looked uncomfortable. "I thought I might actually have more success than you." "Based on what?" "Based on the assumption that men are less selective than women, and that my physical appearance would be more immediately appealing than your professional qualities." "So you thought dating would be like social media, more immediate gratification for attractive women than for successful men?" "Something like that." I nodded, filing away this information for future reference. "And now?" "Now I realize that dating at 40 is completely different from dating at 25. The things that matter to people have changed." "What matters now?" "Stability, proven track record, the ability to maintain long-term commitments, all the things you offer and I took for granted." That evening, while I was getting ready for dinner with Jennifer, Keena returned from her lunch with Margaret Hoffman, looking simultaneously exhausted and energized. "How did it go?" I asked. "Better than expected." Margaret was prepared to hear gossip, but she wasn't prepared for a confident woman who had nothing to hide. "What did you tell her?" "I told her that we decided to approach our marriage like mature adults who aren't threatened by the idea of our partner being attractive to other people. I told her that we're both dating, we're both learning about ourselves, and we're both more committed to our marriage than ever." And she believed that? She believed that I believed it, which is apparently enough to change the narrative. I straightened my tie and checked my watch. Good. Controlling the story is always more effective than reacting to it. "Colby?" Yes? Have a good time tonight. You've earned it. As I drove to dinner, I reflected on the day's conversations. Kana was finally beginning to understand the reality of the situation she'd created, and she was adapting with the same strategic thinking that made her successful in business. Whether that adaptation would be enough to save our marriage remained to be seen. But for the first time since this experiment began, I was curious about the outcome rather than simply resigned to it. Jennifer and I were discussing the intersection of healthcare regulation and emerging technologies when my phone buzzed with an urgent text from Derek. Check your social media, now. I excused myself and opened my various accounts to find a coordinated attack across multiple platforms. Someone had created fake profiles using my photos and was messaging women with increasingly inappropriate content. The messages were designed to look like they came from me, but the tone and language were completely different from my actual communication style. Problem? Jennifer asked when I returned to the table. Someone's trying to sabotage my dating profile by creating fake accounts. That's illegal, isn't it? Absolutely. Identity theft, defamation, probably a few other charges depending on how far they've taken it. Jennifer leaned forward, her legal instincts engaged. Do you know who's behind it? I have a strong suspicion. The question is whether I can prove it. What's your next move? Document everything. Contact the platforms to report the fake accounts, and have a very serious conversation with my wife about her friend's escalating behavior. This is related to your open relationship situation? Unfortunately, yes. Some people are having trouble accepting that adults can make unconventional choices without being victims or villains. When I arrived home that evening, I found Kina in our home office, staring at her laptop with an expression of horror. Please tell me you've seen the fake profiles, I said. I've seen them. I've also seen the messages they're sending. She turned the laptop toward me, displaying screenshots of conversations that made me sound like a predatory sociopath. Colby, this is terrible. It's also criminal. I'm filing a police report tomorrow morning. Do you think this is Ava? Ava, Tara, or someone else in your circle who thinks they're protecting you from the consequences of your own decisions? Kina closed the laptop and rubbed her temples. This has gotten completely out of control. It's gotten exactly as out of control as you've allowed it to get. Every time someone in your social circle escalates their interference, you express concern but take no action to stop them. What am I supposed to do? I can't control what other people post online. You can make it clear that anyone who interferes with this situation will lose your friendship permanently. You can publicly support our arrangement instead of privately complaining about the consequences. You can choose sides. Choose sides? Kina, we're married. When your friends attack your husband, you're supposed to defend him, not wring your hands and claim helplessness. She was quiet for a long moment, then said, You're right. I've been trying to manage everyone's feelings instead of protecting our relationship. What are you going to do about it? I'm going to post something on social media that makes our situation crystal clear. And I'm going to make it obvious that anyone who has a problem with our choices isn't welcome in my life. That's a start. But first, I need you to help me identify who's behind the fake profiles. We spent the next hour analyzing the fake accounts, comparing the language and timing to posts from Kina's various friends. The pattern that emerged pointed clearly to Tara Mitchell, the phrasing matched her writing style, and the timing coincided with her work schedule. I can't believe she would do something this destructive, Kina said. You can't believe it, or you don't want to believe it? Both. Tara's been my friend for 8 years. Tara's been your enabler for 8 years. There's a difference. Monday morning, I arrived at the office to find our company's legal team waiting with Derek and our CEO, Michael Richardson. We have a situation, Michael said without preamble. Someone's been using your identity to send threatening messages to women online, and one of those women works for a company we're hoping to partner with. I sat down and pulled out my phone, showing them the documentation I'd compiled over the weekend. I'm aware of the fake accounts. I've already contacted law enforcement and the dating platforms. Everything's documented, and I have strong evidence pointing to the person responsible. Our legal counsel, Patricia Wong, reviewed my screenshots and notes. This is actually quite helpful. You've built a solid case for identity theft and defamation. The question, Michael continued, is how this affects your position here. We can't have our CFO associated with this kind of controversy, even if you're the victim. I understand your concern, but I'm not hiding from this situation, and I'm not letting anonymous cowards damage my reputation without consequences. What's your plan? I opened my laptop and showed them a presentation I'd prepared. I'm going public with the entire story, the open relationship agreement, the fake profiles, the escalation by my wife's friends, complete transparency, full documentation, and a clear narrative that positions me as someone who honors his commitments and protects himself from harassment. Derek looked impressed. That's either brilliant or completely insane. It's strategic. Right now, the story is being told by people who want to make me look like a villain. If I tell the story myself, with full documentation, I control the narrative. Patricia nodded slowly. From a legal standpoint, it's actually quite smart. You're establishing a clear timeline and motive for the harassment, while demonstrating that your own behavior has been completely appropriate. And from a business standpoint? Michael asked. From a business standpoint, it shows that our CFO is someone who plans ahead, documents everything, and doesn't panic under pressure. Those are exactly the qualities we want in our financial leadership. That afternoon, I published a comprehensive blog post on my professional website titled, When Personal Integrity Meets Public Scrutiny, a Case Study in Modern Relationships and Digital Harassment. The post included the complete text of our open relationship agreement, screenshots of my actual dating profile versus the fake profiles, a timeline of the escalating harassment, legal documentation of the identity theft, professional references vouching for my character. Within 6 hours, the post had been shared over 1,000 times and picked up by 3 local news outlets. By evening, I had received messages of support from dozens of colleagues, former classmates, and even some of the women I'd been matched with on the dating apps. Jennifer called during my drive home. I just read your blog post that was incredibly brave. It was incredibly necessary. Sometimes the best defense is complete transparency. How's your wife handling the attention? I'm about to find out. When I walked through our front door, I found Keena sitting at the kitchen counter with a glass of wine and her laptop open. I read your post, she said without looking up. And I'm simultaneously proud of you and mortified by the situation I created. The mortification is understandable. What are you proud of? The way you handled this entire situation. You've been consistent, professional, and honest throughout something that could have destroyed most people. I poured myself a drink and sat down across from her. What happens now? Now I clean up the mess I made. She turned her laptop toward me, showing a draft social media post. I'm publishing this in the morning. The post was a full-throated defense of our arrangement and a clear condemnation of the harassment I'd received. It named Tara specifically as the person behind the fake profiles and announced that Keena was ending their friendship permanently. That's going to cause a stir in your social circle. My social circle has caused enough damage. It's time to choose better friends. What about the open relationship experiment? Are we continuing or ending it? Keena closed the laptop and met my eyes directly. Honestly, I think we both learned what we needed to learn. Which is? That the problem was never your lack of excitement. The problem was my lack of appreciation for what I already had. And what do you want to do with that information? I want to close the dating apps, honor the commitment I made 12 years ago, and spend some time remembering why I married you in the first place. I nodded, recognizing the sincerity in her voice. And if I want to continue dating other people? Then I'll honor our agreement until you're ready to stop. but I hope you'll consider giving our marriage another chance." Why should I? Because despite everything that's happened, we work well together when we're on the same side, and because I finally understand what I was risking when I proposed this experiment. I finished my drink and stood up. I'll think about it. That's all I can ask. Tuesday morning brought a flood of responses to our respective social media posts. The general consensus was overwhelmingly supportive. People appreciated our honesty and condemned the harassment we'd received. More importantly, Tara had been identified as the creator of the fake profiles, and she was facing both criminal charges and a civil lawsuit for defamation and identity theft. Derek found me at lunch, grinning broadly. "You've become something of a folk hero online. Your relationship goals is trending, and half the comments are about your documentation skills. That's gratifying, but not really the point." What is the point? The point is that when someone challenges your integrity, you respond with facts, not emotions. When someone tries to control the narrative about your life, you take control back with complete transparency. And when your wife realizes she made a mistake? I considered the question while finishing my sandwich. Then you decide whether the person who made the mistake is the same person who's asking for forgiveness. Is she? I think so, but I'm going to take some time to be sure. That evening, Kana and I had the most honest conversation we'd shared in years. We talked about our expectations, our disappointments, and our hopes for the future. We discussed the lessons we'd learned about ourselves and each other during the past few weeks. By the end of the conversation, we had agreed to close our dating profiles, attend couples counseling, and spend the next 6 months rebuilding our marriage with the same intentionality we'd applied to the open relationship experiment. "One condition," I said as we were finalizing our new agreement. "What's that?" "Everything gets documented. Our goals, our progress, our challenges. If we're going to rebuild this marriage, we're going to do it with the same transparency and accountability that we applied to dating other people." Kina smiled, the first genuine smile I'd seen from her in months. I wouldn't expect anything less from my husband, the CFO. 3 months later, I was reviewing our marriage rebuilding documentation when Derek knocked on my office door. "How's the relationship project going?" he asked, settling into his usual chair with his morning coffee. "Surprisingly well. Turns out that applying the same analytical approach to marriage that we use for business planning actually works. Who would have thought that clear communication and measurable goals would improve a relationship?" I turned my laptop screen toward him, showing the spreadsheet I'd been maintaining. We've had weekly check-ins, monthly progress reviews, and quarterly goal assessments. We're tracking communication quality, shared activities, individual growth, and relationship satisfaction on a scale of 1 to 10. That's either the most romantic thing I've ever heard or the least romantic thing I've ever heard. It's effective. When you remove the guesswork and emotional manipulation from relationship discussions, you can focus on actual problem solving. And Kina's okay with this level of structure? Kina suggested half of these metrics. Turns out she responds well to clear expectations and measurable outcomes, just like her real estate clients. My phone buzzed with a text from Jennifer. "Saw the article about your company in the Business Journal. Congratulations on the expansion." I'd maintained friendly contact with several of the women I'd met during the open relationship experiment. Most of them had been surprisingly supportive when I explained the situation and announced that Kina and I were working on our marriage. "Speaking of which," Derek continued, "how do you feel about the whole experience now that you have some perspective?" I leaned back in my chair, considering the question. I feel like I learned more about myself and my marriage in 6 weeks than I had in the previous 6 years. Such as the fact that I'm apparently much more confident and attractive than I gave myself credit for. Such as the fact that Kina's dissatisfaction with our marriage had more to do with her own insecurities than with any actual problems between us. And such as such as the fact that when someone proposes a solution to a problem, you should make sure they've accurately identified the problem before you agree to implement their solution. Derek laughed. That sounds like something you'd put on a motivational poster for CFOs. It's something I'd put on a motivational poster for anyone who's ever been married. That evening, Keena and I were preparing dinner together, something we'd started doing as part of our relationship rebuilding plan, when she brought up a topic we'd been avoiding. I saw that Jennifer texted you today. She was congratulating me on the company expansion. How did you know? Your phone was on the counter when the message came in. I wasn't snooping. I continued chopping vegetables, keeping my voice casual. Does it bother you that I'm still in contact with some of the women I met? It bothers me that I don't have the right to be bothered by it. What do you mean? I mean that I created this situation. I opened our marriage, encouraged you to date other people, and then got upset when you were successful at it. I don't get to retroactively claim jealousy about relationships that I explicitly approved. I set down my knife and turned to face her. But you do feel jealous? I feel aware that you formed connections with other women, aware that some of those women appreciated qualities in you that I had stopped noticing, aware that if I hadn't suggested ending the experiment, you might have chosen one of them over me. Is that what you think would have happened? I think it's what should have happened. You had options, Colby. Really good options. Women who were excited to spend time with you, who didn't take your stability for granted, who saw your reliability as an asset rather than a limitation. And yet I chose to work on our marriage instead of pursuing those options. Why? It was a fair question, and one I'd been asking myself for months. Because 12 years of shared history has value. Because the woman who made the mistake of proposing an open relationship isn't the same woman who's been working to rebuild our marriage. And because I realized that what I wanted wasn't validation from other women. It was appreciation from my wife. Keena was quiet for a moment, then said, "Do you think we're going to make it?" "I think we're going to make it work. Whether that's the same thing remains to be seen." "What's the difference?" "Making it work means we'll stay married, maintain a functional household, and probably be reasonably content. Making it means we'll be genuinely happy, excited about our future together, and grateful for what we have." "Which one do you want?" "I want to make it, but I'm prepared to settle for making it work if that's the best we can do." "And how will we know which one we've achieved?" I smiled, recognizing the opening for one of my favorite topics. "We'll measure it. Relationship satisfaction scores, frequency of genuine laughter, number of shared goals, quality of communication, all tracked and analyzed over time. You're going to turn our marriage into a performance dashboard. I'm going to turn our marriage into something we can understand, improve, and take pride in." 6 months after the end of our open relationship experiment, Keena and I were invited to speak at a relationship counseling seminar about unconventional approaches to marriage challenges. "Are we really qualified to give relationship advice?" Keena asked as we prepared our presentation. "We're qualified to share our experience and the lessons we learned. Whether other people find that valuable is up to them." "What's the main lesson you think we learned?" "That most relationship problems aren't actually relationship problems. They're communication problems disguised as compatibility issues." "Explain." "You thought I was boring. I thought you were ungrateful. Neither of us bothered to clearly define what we meant by those terms or explore whether our perceptions were accurate." "And the open relationship experiment forced us to define our terms?" "The open relationship experiment forced us to confront reality. When I started dating other women and discovered that they found me interesting and attractive, it became obvious that the problem wasn't my lack of appeal. When you struggled to find quality matches, it became obvious that the problem wasn't my failure to appreciate you. So what was the problem? The problem was that we'd stopped paying attention to each other. We'd fallen into routines that felt comfortable but weren't particularly engaging. You interpreted that as boredom, I interpreted it as stability. And now? Now we pay attention. We schedule regular check-ins, we set relationship goals, we track our progress, and we celebrate our successes. We treat our marriage like something valuable that requires ongoing maintenance and investment. Do you think other couples could benefit from this approach? I think other couples could benefit from any approach that involves honest communication, clear expectations, and measurable outcomes. Whether they achieve that through an open relationship experiment, traditional counseling, or some other method is less important than the commitment to transparency and accountability. The seminar went well. We shared our story, answered questions, and provided practical tools for couples who wanted to apply similar principles to their own relationships. Afterward, a woman approached us with a question that caught me off guard. "Do you ever regret the open relationship experiment?" she asked. Keena and I looked at each other, and I realized we'd never directly discussed this question. "No," Keena said finally. "I regret the way I handled it, and I regret the pain I caused, but I don't regret the experiment itself." "Why not?" "Because it taught us things about ourselves and our marriage that we never would have learned otherwise. It forced us to confront problems we'd been avoiding and to develop skills we didn't know we needed." "What about you?" the woman asked, turning to me. "I regret that it took a crisis to get our attention," I said, "but I don't regret the outcome. We have a stronger marriage now than we've ever had, and we have tools for maintaining that strength over time." "Would you recommend it to other couples?" "I'd recommend the principles: transparency, documentation, clear communication, and accountability. Whether those principles are applied through an open relationship experiment or some other approach depends on the specific couple and their specific challenges." That evening, as we drove home from the seminar, Keena asked me a question I'd been expecting for months. "Do you forgive me?" "For what, specifically?" "For proposing the open relationship, for underestimating you, for letting my friends interfere, for nearly destroying our marriage because I was bored and selfish." I considered my answer carefully. "I forgive you for making a mistake. I respect you for owning that mistake and working to fix it. And I appreciate you for becoming the partner I always hoped you could be." Is that the same as forgiveness? It's better than forgiveness. Forgiveness implies that something wrong was done and we're choosing to move past it. What I'm describing is gratitude for a difficult experience that ultimately made us stronger. So you're grateful that I demanded an open relationship? I'm grateful that we learned what we learned. I'm grateful that we developed the skills we developed. I'm grateful that we discovered what we're capable of when we work together instead of against each other. And I'm grateful that you're a better man than I deserved when I made that demand. You deserved exactly what you got: a husband who honored his commitments, documented everything, and refused to let anyone else control the narrative about our marriage. Even when that narrative was unflattering? Especially when that narrative was unflattering. The truth is always better than a comfortable lie. 1 year later, our marriage satisfaction scores had improved by 43%, our communication quality ratings had doubled, and we'd achieved every relationship goal we'd set during our rebuilding process. More importantly, we'd learned to see each other clearly, not as the idealized versions we'd married, or the disappointing versions we'd become, but as the real, complex, evolving people we actually were. The open relationship experiment had lasted 6 weeks. The marriage that grew out of it was built to last a lifetime, and this time we had the documentation to prove it.